I will never forget the night of my 8th wedding anniversary. The expensive restaurant, the champagne, the little velvet box with jewelry I would later return. When I checked my phone while she was in the restroom, I saw her text message to her boss. Everything I believed about my marriage shattered in seconds. The divorce was devastating, taking nearly everything I had. But 18 months later, I stand in a new life, unexpectedly happier. Nothing prepared me for how Amanda would break down when she saw that life I built without her. Before I dive into this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. If you have ever experienced heartbreak or betrayal, please subscribe to join our community of survivors who are building better lives after pain. I met Amanda during my early days as an architect in Chicago. I was 28, ambitious, and working long hours designing commercial spaces. She walked into a networking event with confidence that lit up the room. Her smile caught my attention immediately, but it was her intelligence that made me fall for her. Amanda was building her career in marketing, and we connected over our shared drive and ambition. Our courtship was everything I had imagined love should be. We spent weekends exploring Chicago neighborhoods, finding hidden restaurants, and talking for hours about our dreams. 6 months in, I knew she was the one. I proposed at the Lincoln Park Conservatory, surrounded by orchids, her favorite flower. Her eyes filled with tears as she said yes. I thought that moment represented our future together, perfectly beautiful and full of growth. The early years of marriage felt like a dream. We purchased a brownstone in Lincoln Park that we spent weekends renovating together. I designed a home office for her where she could work on freelance projects. She helped me practice presentations for major clients. We traveled to Portugal, Japan, and New Zealand, filling our home with photographs and souvenirs. Each night we would share stories about our day over dinner, genuinely interested in each other's worlds. It was during our 5th year that small cracks began to appear. Amanda started working later, canceling our dinner plans with last-minute meetings. Her phone became a constant companion, and she would step away to take calls. A new group of coworkers entered her life, people she never seemed interested in introducing me to. When I asked about joining her for office events, there was always some reason why it would be awkward or boring for me. I told myself this was just a phase, that her career was demanding more of her time. I wanted to be a supportive husband, not someone who made her feel guilty for her success. But when she forgot our anniversary that year, something felt deeply wrong. I tried talking with her about it, but she dismissed my concerns as insecurity. I was determined to strengthen our connection. I planned weekend getaways to Michigan wineries, bought tickets to concerts she mentioned, wanting to see, and suggested we try couples therapy as a proactive step. Amanda reluctantly agreed to therapy, but only attended 3 sessions before declaring it a waste of time. She said the therapist was obviously taking my side, though I never felt that was true. As our 8th anniversary approached, I pulled out all the stops to rekindle what we had lost. I made reservations at Alinea, the restaurant where we had celebrated our engagement. I coordinated with the chef for a custom dessert featuring flavors from our honeymoon in Portugal. I bought sapphire earrings that matched the blue of her eyes, wrapped in her favorite cream-colored paper. I even arranged for her favorite flowers to be delivered to our home after dinner. That night, Amanda seemed distracted but made an effort to engage. She complimented the restaurant choice and reminisced about our engagement. For a moment, I felt hope that we might find our way back to each other. When she excused herself to the restroom, I found myself watching her walk away, still admiring her after all these years. My phone buzzed with a text notification. It was an accident that changed everything. I glanced down to see a message preview from her phone synced to my tablet at home. Jake. Last night was amazing. Cannot wait for Seattle next week. She does not suspect anything, right? My heart stopped. Jake was her boss, a man she had described as brilliant but difficult, a married man with 3 children. The message confirmed what my instincts had been telling me, but my heart refused to believe. When Amanda returned to the table, she must have seen something in my expression. "What happened?" she asked. I showed her the notification. Her face did not register shock or shame, just annoyance, as if I had interrupted something inconvenient. "You were not supposed to see that," she said coldly. How long, I managed to ask. 6 months, she replied without emotion. "Eugene, I was going to tell you after our trip to Seattle. Jake and I have feelings for each other. I feel stifled in this marriage. You are too predictable, too safe." Every word felt like a physical blow. The waiter approached with champagne, saw our expressions, and quietly retreated. I paid the bill in a daze, and we drove home in silence. That night I slept in the guest room, though sleep never came. By morning, Amanda had packed a suitcase and moved to a hotel. She said she needed space to think, but her actions showed she had made her decision long ago. The divorce process began almost immediately. Amanda hired Kathleen Zellner, one of the most aggressive divorce attorneys in Chicago. My attorney warned me that she would likely go after everything. He was right. Despite the infidelity, Illinois is a no-fault state, and Amanda demanded half of everything we owned. I will never forget walking into that first mediation session. Amanda sat across the table with a cold, calculating look I had never seen before. She claimed that her marketing expertise had been crucial to my architectural success, that she had sacrificed career opportunities for my benefit. None of it was true, but she constructed a narrative that painted her as supportive and me as controlling. Our friends quickly took sides. Some who knew us both chose to believe Amanda when she told them I had been emotionally unavailable, that I had driven her to seek connection elsewhere. Only my oldest friends stood firmly by me, seeing through the fabrications. My friend Thomas brought me groceries when I could not bring myself to leave the house. My college roommate Michael called me every day for weeks, making sure I was still functioning. The most painful blow came when the judge ruled on our home. Despite the fact that I had paid 70% of the mortgage and had done most of the renovation work myself, Amanda was awarded temporary exclusive use of the brownstone. I was given 48 hours to gather my belongings. Packing my life into boxes while Amanda watched with her arms crossed was one of the most humiliating experiences of my life. Financial stress mounted quickly. My savings dwindled as I paid for an apartment, ongoing mortgage payments, and ever-increasing legal fees. The divorce proceedings dragged on for months, with Amanda rejecting every reasonable settlement offer. She seemed determined to punish me, though she was the one who had betrayed our vows. My work suffered tremendously. Architecture requires focus and creativity, both of which abandoned me during this time. I missed deadlines, overlooked details, and struggled to communicate effectively with clients. When I lost the Riverside Tower project, a design I had worked on for months, my boss expressed concern about my future at the firm. The emotional toll was even worse than the financial one. I lost 20 pounds in 2 months. Anxiety kept me awake at night, replaying conversations and wondering what I could have done differently. My self-worth plummeted as I internalized the subtle and not-so-subtle accusations Amanda had made. Had I been too predictable, too focused on work, not attentive enough? Adding insult to injury was Amanda's social media activity. While I withdrew from online platforms, she increased her presence, posting carefully filtered photos that portrayed her as thriving after escaping an unhappy marriage. She never named me directly, but her followers knew exactly who she meant when she posted about feeling free for the first time in years, or finally being with someone who understood her. Meanwhile, her relationship with Jake became public, though she carefully managed the timeline to make it appear they had gotten together after our separation. The comments from mutual friends congratulating her on finding happiness cut deeper than I could have imagined. By the time we approached the final divorce hearing, I had reached my lowest point. I seriously considered leaving Chicago altogether, starting over in another city, where I would not have to worry about running into Amanda or mutual acquaintances who had chosen her side. I felt defeated, as if the life I had carefully built had been not just damaged but completely destroyed. The final divorce hearing confirmed what I already knew. Amanda had won. She got the house, though she would have to buy out my portion over 5 years. She got half of my retirement savings. She even got partial ownership of my architectural drawings, claiming they had been created during our marriage and were therefore marital property. Throughout the proceedings, she maintained a smug expression, occasionally exchanging knowing glances with Jake, who sat in the back row. As we left the courtroom, she approached me with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "I hope you find happiness someday, Eugene," she said, as if she had done me a favor. I could not respond. I simply walked away, feeling as if I had lost everything that mattered. The turning point came 3 weeks after the divorce was finalized. I was sitting in my sparse apartment, surrounded by unpacked boxes, eating takeout for the 4th night in a row. A call came from an old professor of mine who had heard about my situation. He did not offer sympathy, which was refreshing after months of pitying looks. Instead, he challenged me. "Eugene," he said firmly, "you have 2 choices. You can let this define you, or you can define yourself in spite of it. Your talent did not disappear with your marriage. Your worth was never tied to Amanda. What are you going to do now? Something shifted inside me that night. I realized I had been waiting for permission to move forward, for someone to tell me it was okay to rebuild. But the only person who could give that permission was me. I made a decision then and there that the narrative of my life would not be Amanda destroyed Eugene. It would be Eugene rose from the ashes. The next morning I made 3 changes. First, I cleaned my apartment and finally unpacked those boxes. Second, I visited an animal shelter and adopted a scruffy terrier mix named Cooper, who needed a home as badly as I needed company. Third, I called my boss and asked for a fresh start on a small project, something I could use to prove myself again. Over the next few weeks, Cooper became my salvation. Our morning runs forced me out of bed when depression tempted me to stay under the covers. His unconditional affection reminded me that I was still worthy of love. Walking him through the neighborhood introduced me to neighbors and created a small community in my new surroundings. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during my marriage and divorce. Thomas and Michael organized a weekly basketball game that gave me something to look forward to. My college friend Jasmine, now a therapist, recommended books that helped me process my grief and anger in healthier ways. Slowly, I rebuilt a support system that had nothing to do with Amanda. At work, I threw myself into a small renovation project for a local bookstore. The modest scope allowed me to regain my confidence, and the owner's appreciation for my ideas reminded me why I had become an architect in the first place. When that project succeeded, I was assigned a community center renovation, which presented greater challenges but also greater creative opportunities. During this time, I developed new routines that supported my well-being. Morning runs with Cooper, meditation before work, and cooking classes on Wednesday evenings. The cooking classes were particularly therapeutic, teaching me to nourish myself in ways I had neglected. I made friends with a retired chef named Gordon, who took me under his wing, teaching me techniques beyond the basic curriculum. 6 months after the divorce, an unexpected opportunity arose. My firm was invited to submit designs for an affordable housing project, something I had always been passionate about, but had never had the chance to pursue. I worked nights and weekends on the proposal, incorporating sustainable elements in community spaces that would foster connection among residents. When my design was selected, it marked a professional breakthrough that helped restore my confidence. It was at a community garden project related to the housing development that I met Sophia. She was a landscape architect consulting on the project, and our first conversation was a friendly debate about native plant selection. Unlike the immediate spark I had felt with Amanda, my connection with Sophia built slowly. We became colleagues first, then friends who occasionally grabbed coffee after site meetings. Sophia was different from Amanda in countless ways. Where Amanda had been polished and strategic, Sophia was authentic and straightforward. She laughed easily and spoke candidly about her own past relationship failures. She asked thoughtful questions and genuinely listened to the answers. For months, I valued her friendship without considering anything more. I was still healing, and she respected that process. 9 months after the divorce, I qualified for a mortgage again. The housing market had dipped slightly, and I found a beautiful loft in a converted warehouse with exposed brick walls and views of Lake Michigan. It was entirely different from the brownstone I had shared with Amanda, which was exactly what I wanted. I enlisted friends to help me move, and threw a housewarming party that filled the space with laughter. Amanda had never allowed parties at our home, claiming they were too messy and disruptive. This small act of defining my own living space on my terms felt surprisingly liberating. My relationship with Sophia evolved naturally. A year after my divorce, I finally asked her to dinner as more than a friend. Our first date lasted 5 hours, conversation flowing effortlessly, as we shared appetizers and dessert long after our main courses were finished. Unlike my relationship with Amanda, which had been built on shared ambition, my connection with Sophia was rooted in mutual respect and genuine enjoyment of each other's company. We took things slowly, both having been hurt in previous relationships. We discussed expectations, boundaries, and hopes with an honesty that sometimes felt uncomfortable, but ultimately built trust. When disagreements arose, we addressed them directly, rather than letting resentment build. Each time we navigated a difficult conversation successfully, my faith in relationships gradually returned. Professionally, my work on the affordable housing project garnered attention. I was invited to speak at a sustainability conference, which led to new clients and opportunities. 18 months after the divorce, I was made partner at my firm, something that might never have happened if I had stayed in my previous position, where I had been pigeonholed into commercial work. Throughout this period of rebuilding, I maintained minimal social media presence. However, friends occasionally tagged me in photos from social events or professional achievements. Without intending to, I had created a digital trail of my new life that was visible to anyone who knew where to look. I never posted about Amanda or the divorce, focusing instead on moving forward rather than looking back. The most unexpected part of my journey was discovering that I was genuinely happier than I had been in the later years of my marriage. The freedom to make decisions without compromise allowed me to pursue interests Amanda had dismissed. I took sailing lessons on Lake Michigan, joined a jazz appreciation group, and volunteered teaching architecture to high school students. I cultivated friendships with people Amanda would have found too quirky or unpolished for her carefully curated social circle. For the first time in years, I felt like I was living authentically rather than performing a role in someone else's story. 18 months after our divorce was finalized, I was having dinner with Sophia and two other couples at Monteverde, a popular Italian restaurant in the West Loop. We were celebrating my promotion to partner, and the evening was filled with good food, wine, and conversation. As Sophia was telling a story about a disastrous client meeting, I noticed her expression change mid-sentence, her eyes focusing on something behind me. I turned to see Amanda standing near our table, clearly caught off guard by my presence. She looked thinner than I remembered her carefully maintained appearance, slightly frayed at the edges. Beside her stood a woman I did not recognize, not Jake as I might have expected. There was a moment of awkward silence as we made eye contact. I felt a brief flutter of anxiety then, a surprising calm. Her presence no longer had the power to unsettle me. "Eugene," she said, forcing a smile. "How nice to see you." I introduced her politely to Sophia, and our friends keeping my tone neutral and pleasant. Amanda made small talk for a few uncomfortable minutes, mentioning that she had heard about my work on the affordable housing project and thought it sounded interesting. I thanked her and asked about her work maintaining the superficial politeness of former spouses who have nothing real left to discuss. As she walked away to her own table, I noticed her glancing back at our group at the easy laughter and genuine connections. Sophia squeezed my hand under the table and the evening continued pleasantly. I gave Amanda little thought for the remainder of the night. It was 3 days later when the text messages began. The first came at 11:30 at night, clearly composed under the influence of alcohol. "You look good, Eugene. Really good. Happy." I did not respond. An hour later, I made a mistake. Jake and I broke up 6 months ago. He went back to his wife. Again, I did not engage. The third message came around 1 in the morning. "Can we meet? Just to talk. Please." After consulting with Sophia, who trusted me to handle the situation appropriately, I agreed to meet Amanda for coffee. I chose a public place near my office, limited the meeting to 30 minutes, and arrived with clear boundaries in mind. Amanda was already seated when I arrived, nursing a large coffee and looking nervous. She had applied her makeup, carefully dressed, in a way that I once would have found captivating. Now I simply saw someone from my past who had once been important to me. "Thank you for meeting me," she began, her voice soft. "You seem to be doing really well." "I am," I confirmed. "I hope you are too." Her laugh held no humor. "Not really, if I am being honest. After Jake and I broke up, I had trouble at work. I ended up leaving the company. I am freelancing now, but it has been challenging to build a client base." I expressed appropriate sympathy without offering help. She continued talking, telling me about how she had sold the brownstone because it felt too large for just her, how she missed our mutual friends, many of whom had drifted away after initially taking her side. As she spoke, I realized she was working towards something specific. Finally, after nearly 20 minutes of circling the subject, she reached across the table, her hand stopping just short of touching mine. "I have been thinking about us, Eugene, about what we had. I think I made a terrible mistake. We were good together, were not we?" Before things got complicated, I studied her face, searching for the woman I had once loved so completely. I could see only fragments now, like looking at a familiar landscape through a shattered window. "We were good together once," I acknowledged. "But that was a different time. We are different people now. We could try again," she suggested, her voice taking on an edge of desperation I had never heard before. "I know I hurt you, but people deserve second chances, do not they?" I chose my words carefully, wanting to be kind, without offering false hope. "Amanda, I have forgiven you. That was necessary for me to move forward. But forgiveness does not mean returning to the past. I am happy in my life now. I am happy with Sophia. Her eyes filled with tears, something I had rarely seen even during our divorce. She does not know you like I do, she insisted. 8 years of marriage. That means something. Yes, I said gently. It meant something. And those years are part of who I am. But they are not my future. She became increasingly agitated, suggesting that I was being hasty, that Sophia was a rebound relationship, that we owed it to ourselves to try again. When I remained firm, she abruptly stood up, grabbing her purse. Fine. I just thought you might want to know that I still love you. That I made a mistake. But clearly, you have moved on. I have, I confirmed, standing as well. And I hope you will too. Amanda, I genuinely wish you happiness. She stormed out of the coffee shop. I followed at a distance to make sure she got to her car safely. In the parking lot, I watched as she sat behind the wheel, her composure finally breaking. Her shoulders shook with sobs as she covered her face with her hands. It was the breakdown of someone facing the consequences of their choices, of seeing a life they could have had but destroyed through their own actions. I felt no satisfaction in her pain, only a peaceful certainty that I was exactly where I needed to be. The man who had been devastated by her betrayal had grown into someone stronger, someone who understood his own worth, was not determined by another person's ability to recognize it. The journey through heartbreak had taught me more about myself than years of comfortable marriage ever had. I learned that resilience is not about avoiding pain, but moving through it with integrity. I discovered that forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, releasing the burden of anger and resentment. Most importantly, I realized that sometimes what feels like an ending is actually the beginning of a better story. I still think about Amanda, occasionally hoping she has found her way to happiness. But I no longer wonder what might have been. Instead, I focus on building a life that feels authentic and meaningful with someone who values me as I am. Sometimes losing what you thought you needed opens the door to discovering what you truly deserve. Have you ever experienced a relationship ending that actually led to something better in your life? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories of transformation and growth. Thank you for listening, and remember that your happiest days might still be ahead of you, not behind you. Sometimes the most beautiful chapters come after the hardest ones.